Hello, and welcome to another episode of Abiala and Igbo Podcast. My name is Ifunanya, and I'm an Igbo learner just like you. And on today, we have a super exciting episode for so many reasons. This episode is in collaboration with UIU Unite that I'm sure so many of you have heard about. It's an organization in the US, and they do such a great job trying to bring together Igbo people, community, youth, professionals, hosting so many different events, and they have different chapters throughout the United States. I'm here today with Desiree, so I'll pass it off to her to tell you a little bit more about herself and this organization and what we're doing today.
Absolutely. Thank you, Ifunanya. As she said, my name is Desiree Soto, and I am co-leading the magazine this year for UIU Unite's annual convention. And to her point, it's an organization that fosters and cultivates what we love, which is our culture, Igbo culture. I think the convention this August is always the highlight of the year for many, just because not only is it a place to reunite and gather, but it really allows us a safe space to just be us. And so learning and working with other organizations and bodies such as Igbo Podcast is all we're about. And this magazine is to celebrate our culture in the various aspects, whether it be through the arts, through tech, through healthcare and such. So I'm really excited to have this collaboration episode. I think there's just so many people like yourself, myself, and others who can relate and have shared experiences. And so seeing people like us on screen hopefully will inspire others.
Definitely. And so I'm super excited about this collaboration. Desiree reached out to hear a little bit more about Igbo Podcast and the story behind it. I've actually had some other people who have reached out to me to hear kind of more about what inspired Igbo Podcast, as well as kind of like my trip to Nigeria to learn the Igbo language that was really the catalyst to this platform. So today this will actually be more in English than in Igbo, and we'll just be kind of talking about the organizations in an interview type of format.
I'll kick it off because I think for us as those who work with Igbo Unite and have followed the Igbo Podcast from its inception to see the magnificent growth that you guys have had. I guess when we hear about that, oh, well, she's a learner, but yet she has a podcast teaching others Igbo and it's doing successful.
Crazy.
How did we get here? Can you walk us to this point? Because I couldn't piece it together. And how did you have the courage to be a learner and also be teaching Igbo at the same time?
So, there are definitely different processes to getting here. But I think first and foremost, it comes from just my love of the culture. I think as with many of us, our Igbo identity has influenced so much of who we are. But I know for me personally, not being able to speak the language has made me feel like a bit of a barrier or some difficulty in being able to fully embody the culture. So growing up, I used to have a notebook and try and ask my parents what's this word in Igbo and what's this word in Igbo. And, sometimes that was met with some discouragement, go sit down and do something better, go read your book or something like that. Sometimes it was met with, some encouragement, sometimes ridicule and things like that. So just learning the language has always been something on my heart, but it's always been such a steep mountain to try to climb. So for me, I think what's a part of this journey has been how I've interacted with learning other language, such as French. And so in university, I studied abroad in Switzerland for a semester for learning French. And that was a very changing experience for me in terms of, oh my gosh, I've been studying French for all these years and I can't speak anything with these people. What is the problem? How do I do this? And so I started to look at how to learn a language a bit more deeply after that experience, as well as how to make language learning a lifestyle, which is one of our mottos at Igbo Podcast. So after studying abroad and coming back, I started listening to a podcast for French, and I would listen to it on my way to work, and I would listen to it at work. And I was like, oh my gosh, this would be so great if I had this for, they had something like this for Igbo, something that people could listen to on the go and, kind of engage in the language without having to be so like strict in the classroom or anything like that. So that's what kind of sparked the idea of we needed an Igbo podcast. But then from there, I started actually kind of learning the Igbo language from a peer, and we would mostly exchange WhatsApp messages. But I felt like I was really starting to pick up certain things, and he wasn't a teacher. He wasn't anything like that. Just a bright young man who loves languages. And loves the Igbo language and culture. So me and this young man, he actually can speak a ton of languages, but he's a native Igbo speaker, and he grew up and was born and raised in Nigeria, in Igboland. We would just kind of exchange voice notes. And I think for me, that was one of the biggest points of me learning how I would learn Igbo, and just kind of being able to interact with the pair, being able to recognize, when I'm answering a question, how this person is answering, and then the result of it. So all those little pieces came together when right before starting physical therapy school, I decided that I wasn't going to keep working, that I was going to use this time and go to Nigeria for the primary reason of learning Igbo. I had just felt like I'll be spending the rest of my life working. I'll be spending the rest of my life like in and out of school. So why not actually take this moment and kind of explore other sides of me that are really, really important. So I went to Nigeria and ended up staying for about 6 months. And so that played such a paramount role in actually starting Igbo Podcast. So first of all, the journey to getting there wasn't so easy. Like I had people who were saying like, oh my gosh, don't do it. You could use your time better. Just stay in the US and work, make money. I had people saying, oh, how are you going to survive? And then I had some people, I'll never forget one of my friends who was so encouraging. He was just like, what is wrong with you? Just go. You're not going to the jungle. Like, calm down. And I had like just a couple of people who were just like, that's a wonderful idea. Go and do it. So it was definitely, even before landing there, it was some personal turmoil and am I making a good decision? So first, I would definitely tell anyone who's considering it to, follow their guts. Nigeria has definitely changed a bit. This was in 2017. So there's definitely a bit more insecurity and a bit more things that are really happening, but follow your guts, follow your heart, make solid plans and, make your decision. So first, I would say that's like the first part, making the decision to go. Then when I actually went, I did have to make like certain plans on where I would stay. And it had to be places that would be like conducive so that I could stay longer. But I think you also have to be realistic about where you're going and what you're experiencing. Like you can't be in the village and just be expecting like something that's not constant in the village, you know what I mean? Or this, if you're in a different place, and that's anywhere you go in the world, like you are in a different place. So I think prepare your mind that you're in a different place.
So you're basically saying if you're going to Nigeria to follow Ifunanya's or your footsteps, it's not Desi December the whole time. You have to actually get in there and be like the locals, right? It's not just be flexing in Lagos.
Yeah. Oh, yes, for sure. Like during that time, it was really exciting because I traveled to many states in Nigeria, but I was predominantly in Igboland. I predominantly traveled throughout Igboland. I did, that was actually my first time ever really spending time in Lagos outside of like, landing there and then going to the east. Yeah. So I did take advantage of that. But yes, it's not, if you're going, you have to look at your objectives. If you're going to learn more about your culture, if you're going to learn about the Igbo language, it's not in Lagos. We do have a very strong community there. We do help so much run in Lagos. So not saying you can't make it work, but you have to be more intentional about being sure that you're in the Igbo communities in Lagos, that you tell those people to know, speak to me in Igbo. Whereas when you go back to the East, you still have to be intentional in those things, because there's some people who are just like, oh no, the Americana, let me just speak Igbo. But at the same time, you won't be in Onitsha and the bus driver is telling you, oh, would you like to sit? They're like, nah, bata, 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 like.
we're gonna make some people upset, because you heard it here first. Like, if you're going to learn about your culture, it's not in Lagos. Full stop, final. Argue with your comments. Don't argue in our comments. But it's true. Like, I feel like we don't embrace going to the East enough. Like, your culture as an Igbo man and woman, and I'm happier about myself, and I'm saying this, is it's not in Lagos. Like, you have to go home, and home is not Lagos. Sorry.
Yes, and that's what I would say. And I would say one of the beautiful thing about Igbo people is a lot of us know our villages. A lot of us, like I said, it wasn't until I was an adult that I actually ever spent some time in Lagos, because any other time visiting Nigeria is like how we go straight to the village, you know?
Exactly.
Because that, as we've been talking about initially, that's really the custodian of our omenala.
Exactly.
So yes, I would say if you want to go onto this journey, make some solid plans. Again, if for you, and everybody has different, you have to be able to like withstand it. You have to be able to be comfortable enough. You have to be able to, so if all you can do is Lagos, no problem, but make sure that you're in a community of Igbo speakers, or you're in a household of Igbo people who know why you're there in your mission, who can help support you. Because again, if I say you can't learn it in Lagos at all, that would be equivalent of saying you can't learn it in the US at all. And I don't.
Of course, yeah.
So it's about a lot of intentionality. But if you're really making that, you know, this decision to pilgrimage to Nigeria, go to the East, for sure. And so I went to the East. I'm from Imo State as well. I was based in Owerri, and I was really this woman, my mom's friend. She had a school, like a primary school in Owerri, and a beautiful home there. But it was modest, but it was comfortable. So I stayed a lot throughout Owerri and my village. I also explored different areas. Like I went to Aba, I went to Enugu, Anambra, Oka. It was just so much fun. I love Enugu. Enugu is like, I would go back and live there.
I love Enugu too.
Yes, it's super organized.
It is organized.
And it was, I would say, for somebody who, if you need something in the East that would be a little bit more structured, a little more laid back, I would say go to Enugu. And there are like a lot of accommodations and things that you can work on, find people that you're comfortable with.
When you were there, were the locals embracing you? Because it's different when we come with our families and we're, doing Christmas for everybody. And then it's another experience when you're living there and that little high and the allure of an American in the neighborhood is gone.
Yeah.
Do you feel like people were trying to take advantage of your ignorance? And I use that in a very polite way, respectfully. Yeah. Or do you feel like people were willing to kind of reach across and make sure that you were good?
Yeah. So, and that's why I say that this trip is, I don't know, it was one of the best decisions I've ever made in my life for so many reasons. And as more and more time goes, the magnitude of it becomes clearer and clearer to me. But it was amazing. For once, I wasn't just the Americana. It wasn't just, Baram Christmas, or what did you bring me back for Christmas, this or that. I literally got to connect with some different family members that I hadn't even connect with. And it wasn't in this I'm a visitor way. It was in this very like eye to eye. Oh, what are your dreams? What are your hopes? What makes you laugh? What are we like? It was just so amazing. I'll never forget even one of my aunts. I went to visit her, and unfortunately, because of the nature of things in Nigeria, aunts and uncles, older, younger, whoever, sometimes when we come back home, they're like asking, oh, what did you bring for me? This or that or whatever, which is, interesting, because sometimes you're just like, wait, I'm the child here.
I know, right?
That dichotomy or whatever. But this aunt, I went to visit her, and they made sure, they didn't want me to lift a finger, and not lift a finger in terms of not do anything, but it was just like, you need water, I'll buy it. You need this, I'll do it. It almost allowed us to just be like, you be the aunt, me be the niece.
Yeah.
It humanized the experience. not just being the visitor from the US for me. So people did not try to take advantage of me. People were so welcoming, were so caring. And even at points, it was like people were even less accommodating, not in a bad way, but like, for example, I was just like, I really want to go to, ShopRite or the market. And they're just like, all right, you take this KK, you do that.
Wow, like, that's real authentic.
Right. And I was just like, you're not going to come with me.
Not the KK though.
And I was just like, you're not going to come with me. And they're like,
no,
I can come on Friday, but I'm busy today. And I just feel like usually when we come in Christmas, is like everybody's catering.
Exactly. Like I can't even wrap my head around this experience. Like I think I would pass out trying to get a KK and getting one. I wouldn't know what to do.
It was amazing. And so people were kind. So I was just like, all right, take me there first. And then like they would show me the routes. But then once they showed me, I was taking KK by myself. And I even had to be local one time. I was surprised at myself. Like one KK, I told him the wrong way and then he wouldn't give me back my 29. I was like, give me back my
Oh my God. That is so crazy. So was it intimidating at all? Like this experience? Cause just you telling me the story, I'm like, I know I wouldn't make it. I didn't think I would make it
either. So I didn't, and I can be very shy and very reserved. I didn't think I would make it either, but obviously people help you to an extent. So like people taught me like the road, like you stop here and then you go here and you just kind of have to do it. Because of my accent, I wouldn't talk too much. I'll try to speak in like a Nigerian accent. And then since I was learning Igbo, I would speak in Igbo and that would kind of help me. Yeah. Sometimes when people didn't notice the Americana swing to my Igbo, I would like be like,
they noticed.
Oh yeah. Sometimes they didn't. Like sometimes I literally, because sometimes people are like, they're living their lives. Nobody's worried about you. True, so it's just like, you just said, egole. They're just like, it's 200 naira, pay me my money and go. You know what I mean?
Right?
Like, no one's, I don't know. I didn't feel as scrutinized despite still having to, at the end of the day, people know you're not from there exactly. Yeah. Like you came from somewhere else. So like, I still had to be smart. So I had to watch what times I moved around and things like that. Yeah. But no, man, I was like really out and about, taking keke, going on bus drives. And then
these are experiences that you can take with you forever because most of us that live in the diaspora have not had those kind of experiences. That's awesome.
No, the magnitude of this trip was amazing. And like the kindness that I experienced, obviously anywhere you go in the world, there's just those people. But I even remember I had visited one of my aunts in Benue. So that's in the Middle Belt. So I was like, oh my gosh, that was literally like going to a whole nother country. Nigeria, and that's the thing, Nigeria is so incredibly diverse and we have no idea. Like we have no idea. But that ride was crazy. And the Middle Belt is a very, very neglected area in Nigeria. So the road was awful. It was an experience. But there was a guy in the bus and he knew that I didn't know my way because the person who handed me off to the bus, this long story. Basically, this man couldn't speak, a young man, he couldn't speak English really. And I couldn't speak like Pidgin very well. He's from the Middle Belt, so my Igbo wouldn't help me. Somehow he really like made sure that I got into my aunt's hands from the different buses that we had to jump to even getting us an Okada. But we couldn't communicate to each other. And it was like that kind of kindness, just knowing that I would be stranded because I don't know. I'm in another country in Nigeria right now.
That's crazy.
But the kindness that he showed me was amazing. So it was just such an amazing experience from interacting with my own family to other Nigerians. One thing that I have to mention is it was wonderful too to see like my family members as peers and like start having like those connections just as friends. But also I met different younger professionals in Nigeria.
Really?
And it was and it was so inspiring. And that's also part of the mission behind our Igbo Conversation Exchange program is that it's young professionals. These people have dreams. These people have other jobs. These people are, they have goals and things that they want to do. So it kind of humanizes it. Like I connected with so many like intellectuals, artists, sports people, this or that. And it's just like, it was just nice to have friends, like real friends in Nigeria, not just, that cousin that you say hi to that kind of knows you kind of know them, this or that. Like you found a
community and that's
It was a
So
very humbling
amazing.
experience. Yeah.
I'm so happy that you had that experience, and now I'm jealous. I'm like, dang, like, what do I do? Well, I have 6 months. I too would like to go to Igboland and figure my life out. That is amazing. And what I'm trying to say is that, like, I hope that people feel more inspired throughout this process. Just like being able to watch someone who grew up in the same country that many of us have grown up in, had the same experience with limited to no knowledge of the language, to come to this point where not only do you have a podcast, but it's successful and it's growing each day. Now you've had an experience where you were able to basically go on a whole pilgrimage back to our home as Nigerians, as Igbo people, and your experience was positive. When we talk about going to Nigeria, it's usually the negative. Oh, the stress, the this, the trauma, the this, the corruption. When we talk about going to Nigeria, it's usually the negative. Oh, the stress, the this, the trauma, the this, the corruption. But there's good, right? Like, we're still, at the end of the day, there's still love and hope in that country. Definitely. And you were able to tap into that. And I feel like that is a huge part of how we got to today's conversation. And thank you so much for sharing those experiences. I just feel like, you know, everyone's experience will be different. No one is going to be able to go and do exactly what you did and have the exact same outcome. But I think, if you will agree, the main point is, don't be afraid to engage with the culture. It's here to, it can only be here to help us. It's not to be intimidating. It's not something that is out of reach. It's for us. It's our culture, for us, by us. And the only way that you can truly keep it alive is to start from somewhere. Would you agree?
100%. 100%.
Can we kind of shift gears towards like omenala? We all hear that all the time. And what would you say omenala is? Like, how would we define that as an Igbo body?
Omenala, I think it's just culture. I think one of the beautiful things about the Igbo language is that even if you look at our names are like sentences. They're whole like phrases and things like that. And a lot of Igbo is descriptive and it's putting together certain things. So omenala, if you break it down, it's like what happens on earth. And so earth is like the practice of our rituals, the practice of our, you know, all these different things that end up being what we think of as culture.
And that, to me, is mind-blowing, because we're so big as Igbo people on omenala and culture and rituals, but there's so many Igbo people that do not prioritize teaching their children the language. And so I wanted to make that connection, because I feel like we are so cultural, like we are so tribalistic in many ways. And my Igbo people who are watching this, please don't come and start shouting on UIU or Igbo Podcast's pages. But it's facts, like we're so into culture, but then at the same time, we want to form in our houses. Like, I have members that are like, no, I want my kids to only speak English. My mom said she grew up that way. Her father was like, no, you guys only speak English at home. And these are people that were born and raised in Enugu. So it's just like, for me, it's not clear to me as to why we don't prioritize keeping our language alive. Do you have an idea as to maybe why that is?
Yeah, definitely. You just touched on a lot of different points. And just to say, saying that we're tribalistic is not a bad thing. There's nothing wrong with being about yourself and your people and those types of things. And despite us being tribalistic and, you know, being about ourselves and the communities, Igbo people are also the most accommodating, even to a fault, the most assimilating, even to a fault. So there's definitely nothing wrong with that. I would say it's so multifactorial. Some people relate some of this back to like the war and the defeat of the war, kind of having the shame. Other things, honestly, is the kind of the stigmatization that Igbo people kind of have in general, especially in Nigeria. Like I know some Igbo people who, you know, might go by Joe Mike instead of Joe Mike is whatever, just because it might be harder to get the job in Nigeria when you're known as an Igbo man. And
they would be getting at Chuku and they be calling themselves Kenny.
yeah, exactly. And it's quite unfortunate, because we could talk for hours about why that is, you know, this stigma, you know, this minoritization in Nigeria about the Igbo man. But at the heart of a lot of it is intimidation. We go into places and we dominate, and not because we want to be over people, but because we are like overachievers, because if there's a better way to get something done, we want to be doing it, or we'll, you know, try and do that, which is some of our great qualities, but hasn't been welcomed, I think, in a lot of Nigerian spaces, unfortunately. So I think that's part of why some of our parents didn't like teach us the language. I think too, again, like how I stated, us being accommodating to a fault or wanting to assimilate to a fault. Some people had concerns of, you know, not wanting two languages to confuse their child, or, you know, not wanting their children to have any difficulty with these new environments. And I mean, to a certain extent, we can't like blame some of our family members or our parents for some of these decisions, because we don't know how it feels to like just completely move to another country and try to build a new life and like search for success and all the many factors and things that they have to consider on how to, you know, raise a child. So I try not to blame them too much, but I do try, and people who are just really ignorant about it to a fault, I blame them. But people who are open to like learning and considering the reasons why we do certain things and how we can address it, I think that's a more productive space to be in for both, you know, the native speakers and us, like, you know, the children of them.
And I mean, honestly, the way you broke it down makes a lot of sense, because it's very easy to blame or criticize, but when you realize that a lot of these things have historical and cultural ties, it makes a lot more sense. And, you know, there's a thing I always hear, like, personally, I like to say I speak Igbo, but then I'm talking to people who actually can speak Igbo, and I'm like, okay, maybe I can't. And then there's people that say, well, I can understand it, but I can't speak it, or I can speak it, but I can't read it or write it. And so I guess my thing is with the Igbo language, I think a number one barrier that even me personally that's tried to like strengthen my skill sets, and I'm sure others can relate, is not only is it tonal, but then you have the different dialects. And so like my family will speak Imo State Igbo, but it's not the same as Mbise in the same Imo State Igbo. So it's just like, then don't even talk about Anambra people or Abia State. That's the whole, I can't understand anything they're saying most times. So it's just like, how do people even tackle it? What's Central Igbo and where do we start?
Yeah. So I think I love and welcome dialects. It actually inspires me, and it actually is something that I find so exciting. I think as Igbo people, we have to understand what it means to be Igbo people. We are a people full of diverse clans of people. Not one Igbo person is the same exact as the next. And that's perfectly okay. Like when you look at our communities, they're diverse. Even when we talk about, your original question was omenala, it's not exactly the same across different towns in Igboland, even neighboring towns. So we are already a diverse clan of people. And with that, our languages reflect those diversity. As a learner, I look at dialects as a plus, because it helps me kind of choose between things that I can say and my comfort. So for example, Nsobu Adihi, that GHI for a lot of learners is quite difficult because it kind of makes like the sound. But our lovely Anambran brethren, they just say Nsobu Adiro. I honestly, if I can't get the GHI out sometimes, I'll just say Nsobu Adiro, and everyone can understand me. Nina, who's also like leading you, co-ing with the magazine, we're from the same community, and our community says Nsobu Adidi. So like our negator is the D. So it's quite beautiful to look at the diversity. There's some people that have likened sometimes hearing two Igbo people speak to hearing a Spanish and a Portuguese person speak a language to each other. And it's truly like, it's a very realistic comparison. Obviously, some dialects are closer to each other than others, but some are so much further apart. So I feel like as learners, we need to first start by recognizing what it means to be Igbo, that we are actually a diverse group of people with varying clans and varying dialects, varying omenala, like different ways that we engage in culture and all that good stuff. And then I also feel like, for me, I think one of the best ways of approaching it is, first of all, find a resource that will actually help you stick to learning the language. And then when you have that research, go to your, custodians of your specific dialect and compare. So for example, when I'm learning something, if I learn how to say like afternoon is ehihie. But I hear my grandmother saying things like ehi or this or that. I'll go and I'll ask her, oh, what's this? What's that? And then it helps me just build my vocabulary. But it was good that I had a place to start that taught me, okay, ehihie is a way that it's said in Igbo. And then I go to my family and find out what is our variations. So I just think we need to start embracing it and letting it empower us rather than discourage us. There's some people who are very adamant about just learning their dialects, and I completely understand that, because at the end of the day, that's the Igbo that you know, that's Igbo to you. But I would just say that sometimes starting from a place where you can continue and then use that as your base to getting some of the diversities that is like your dialects is better than just not learning at all, because you can't get your specific dialects.
No, that makes perfect sense. And so if someone says, okay, I want to just start learning today, and I know you said just kind of picking up on where you can and then comparing and contrasting with what you have available to you as far as some of the resources, do you start by greetings? Do you start by names, the alphabet? I know a little bit of French, and we start with the alphabet, right? And then conjugation. So does Igbo follow that same pattern, or is there a best course of action if someone wants to start learning?
Yes. So again, everyone learns in different ways. So it definitely will vary, but I've found, and what I think has been pretty successful with the Igbo podcasting. So not only do we do, have the free podcast resource, we also have like a tutoring program but our method in how we like organize the lessons and just the flow of things is we do a lot of application based. And that's one thing that I realized in all my other pursuits of learning languages, not just Igbo, that I didn't fully take advantage of, is really honing in on things that would help me communicate immediately, even if I don't know like the ins and out of the subjunctive or how to conjugate this and that. There's certain things that you can learn and use immediately, and that encourages you to continue to learn and delve into what exactly is happening in the language. So I've found that that's been a bit more effective. So while we definitely go over the alphabet, though we do it in a unique way through things like you have to know like an alphabet of a language. Those are like the building blocks to any language. But I think it's the way that you focus on them. So for example, when we teach the alphabet, approach that I have is for the program is that we focus on, for example, the vowel sounds, because they're so critical in Igbo. Like I would say start there with the vowel sounds. And then from there, go to things like digraphs. Those are letters, those like the GH, the KP, basically letters that they're two when you see them, but they make just one sound.
Can you give us an example?
Sure, like Udampi, which is digraphs in Igbo. It's spelled in Igbo alphabet. O, de, a, be, e. So UDAMKPI. That KP is a double consonant, or when you see things like were, and it's spelled NWERE.
Yeah.
Like my last name is Nwanonyiri. It's NWANO, and even the NY. And my name Ifunanya is the NY is one letter in Igbo.
I didn't know that.
Mm-hmm. What's your name?
My name is Desiree. My Igbo name is Namaka.
Is what?
Namaka.
Namaka.
Yeah.
Okay, you don't have a double consonant. What about your last name?
Anya Sodo.
Yeah, that NY is a digraph.
Really?
So that makes the ñ sound. It doesn't make a, which is why people sometimes struggle with our names when they try to say, like, for example, NW, Noah, no, it's one sound.
Interesting.
So yeah. So part of how we do it is that we break it down in kind of the novelties, especially for adult or any learner. Sometimes I've noticed that people would spend like maybe a month just trying to learn the whole entire alphabet. And then when they learn the alphabet, they'll be able to say it, but then they aren't able to apply it to anything. So what we do is like, we'll teach like the vowel sounds and recognizing like what it sounds like in words that it's in. Then we teach like digraphs and how you actually produce that sound. Then we teach like semi-vowels with your first name, Nnam Amaka, correct?
Nne Amaka.
Nne Amaka. That N before the next N, that's a semi-vowel. So it makes like a humming sound, the ne. So we teach like those novelties and make it connected to things, which is why I like asked you about like your name or this. We connected to things that as Igbo learners or just as anyone that's slightly exposed to the language, you might have, oh, you kind of saw it, but just never knew what it was.
Yeah.
So it kind of stick in your brain. And then from there, for example, the consonants are so similar to English. We don't spend that much time on that because literally if you know English consonants, you'll know the Igbo consonants easier. Yeah. So it cuts down making you learn something so bulky without application to learning smaller sections of it with application so it sticks. And it's not so that you can come and recite the alphabet to me, but so you can actually say a word or you can actually communicate. So again, I think getting back to just your question at hand, of course, with learning any language, there's just the building blocks to like the alphabets, the vowels, all that good stuff. You'll find that in any language, but I think our approach and approaches that I think can be a bit more helpful are ones that kind of cut through some of the fluff, apply it to how it's actually applicable, and just kind of make it immediately usable, as well as introduce language almost in the way that you learn as a child. Like, so children learn how to start speaking before they even go to school because of some exposure. So we're very big on teaching like survival phrases, like how do you just introduce yourself to me? How do you just say, if someone asks you, how are you? I'm fine, and you? We start there and then start breaking things down.
Wow. That's really, really interesting. Like, I think it provides hope to a lot of people who feel like, where do I even begin? Mm-hmm. Another thing is the resources that are out there are very different. So if I'm looking at maybe a guidebook, I may see like it in one dialect, and I think that throws people off too. Or sometimes you're trying to learn with people and they'll correct you because they only know their dialect. So it is a challenge, but to your point, like, we've got to start somewhere. And I think, like, I guess for you as a teacher, what are some common mistakes you see when people are first kind of like jumping into this head first, trying to learn Igbo?
In terms of the process of learning, or in terms of like in interacting with Igbo language?
Yeah, like interacting with Igbo language, some of the user mistakes that you see that are common and how we can avoid them.
I often see the digraphs and semi-vowels are really difficult for us all. Tones are big things. But for example, like when I mentioned the NW, it's a digraph, it makes one sound, but I'll see fellow learners doing things like nowere instead of nwere. Or even, for example, past tense only have like low tones. Tones are a big thing. It's something that I continue to struggle with. Getting a little bit better with my instructors in the program, but it's tough. But like always putting like different inflections. So like, for example, to say but, it's mana, but we'll say like mana. And it just like, it really changes what you're saying when you do that. With tones, there are also things that are spelled exactly the same. But because of the tone, it changes. So like one thing that we're working on with our group classes right now, we talked about like, hope I get it right, enyi, which is friend, and then enyi, which is elephant. So exactly the same.
That's a perfect example. Yeah, that confuses me. I'm not even gonna lie to you.
Yes, definitely. So I would say those the digraphs and the tones are things that really trip people up. Also, Igbo does something similar to like French for people who are kind of familiar with that. There's like almost like a liaison of sounds at times. We call it like olilo udaume, which means like the swallowing of vowels. So when you hear somebody say keduki mere, it's actually spelled keduka i mere, but people say keduki mere. or different things like that. I think sometimes it's harder for learners, and there's nothing wrong with saying keduka imere. And I think it's okay, learners have to be okay with sounding like a learner and being a learner as far as you're saying you're communicating correctly and people are getting it. It's something I have to remind myself too, because I'm just like, no, I want to say it like a native speaker.
Yeah.
But it's okay. Keduki mere or keduka imere, either is very okay. As you get more advanced and more comfortable, you'll start speaking more quickly and you'll start saying keduki mere. So I would say those are some of the biggest mistakes that I see, as well as areas of struggle.
And, it's funny because in that same light, what I found, and I don't know if it's just because of the evolution of how speakers speak the language, but I'll find that like a lot of Igbo speakers who are like fluent and native, it's almost chopped. It's almost like Igbo-glish. Am I making up a word? Where it's just like mixes. Like I actually asked somebody the other day, I was like, how do you say umbrella in Igbo? And they're like, I don't think there's a word for umbrella in Igbo. So is that true? Or is it just people are just kind of like mixing it up and it's kind of evolving into like a chopped up pidgin type of language?
Yeah, I think it's a mixture. Igbo has a lot of more vocabulary than I think we give it credit for. I don't think I remember what umbrella is, but I do believe that there's a word. Nglibo is definitely an interesting thing that we see where people will say like, yam umbrella, like, so give me an umbrella.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly.
So yeah, I do think the language definitely has more vocabulary than we give credit to it for, and it is expanding. They are like making up new words. So like there's a word for AC now. I think it's Mutsuyi or something like that. As well as, for example, Igbo is descriptive in places where English is not, vice versa. Like English would have like a billion words for, a queen size bed, a small bed, or this type of sofa, chair, couch. And Igbo's just like, biko oche. Like it's just chair, y'all. But then one thing that I love, and I want to put this out a bit more in like the podcast and our like Instagram page, you'll have certain verbs in Igbo. In English is just the same verb to pull, but Igbo is like, are you pulling it out? Are you pulling it up? Are you pulling it here? And it would have a word for each type of thing. Like, are you pulling something big? Now you use a new verb. Are you pulling something small? Now you use a new verb. So I think we do need to just start giving the language, recognizing the language as an entity of itself and its own uniqueness, giving it credit for that, where there are words, for example, like I never knew the word for spoon until like my quote unquote sabbatical to Nigeria, because in my house it's just yem spoon or whatever, but it's ungaji. And most Igbo people know that it's ungaji, but they might not use it as much. But it also depends on the spaces, because when I went to Nigeria and I was in Igboland, all I heard was Ngaji. All I heard was, so it just also depends on the spaces that we're in. I think in the US, it gets diluted a bit more because we're around people who constantly have to speak English as well. But also, I also know some Igbo households where you can be around some families and they're just like, nah, all we're speaking is Igbo. This is, people who just, their parents who just don't have time for all this English. They're just like, so it just depends.
Okay, well, I mean, and that's valid because that makes sense too. And I don't know if we really came to a conclusion. So when I hear Central Igbo, some people say that's Emo Igbo. Some people say that's not. So what is Central Igbo like, and why is it preferred by some or many?
So I'm not an expert on what breaks it down, but I can share what I have learned and what I've encountered. So I would say that Central Igbo is a mixture of the different Igbos. And so when I refer to Central Igbo, I'm mostly referring to like Igbo Izugbe, and that's like the Igbo that we use in like writing. That's the Igbo that's used in like formal things, as well as it also can be used for speaking, but everyone kind of speaks in their own kind of way. So Igbo Izugbe is a mixture of it's a lot of from some Imo State, a lot from some Abia. There is some Anambra in it, but not as much. I know those are some of the biggest groups, but I think even when you state that, it's important to remember some of the boundaries that we are holding on to, like Imo, Abia, this or that. at one point, some of these places were all one state.
Yeah, exactly.
So the biggest thing is that there was a point in time where people came together. It was called like I think it's the Almu Convention of 19 something, but basically to make a orthography of Igbo language that we could use to have a base for writing and communicating. And this is on the international stage. And I think it was wonderful. It really helped Igbo to kind of have a base, like this is this and this is that. Unfortunately, not all groups are represented at that at that meeting, but part of it was just like those people weren't there or involved in it. Or it might be some other thing. I'm not a historian. No one come from my head. I don't know everything about it. But I would say that because like you mentioned, somebody in Imo State in one place doesn't even speak the same as another person in Imo State. It's hard to really say that Central Igbo is just from Imo State or just from this place or just from that. It's a mixture from different communities that have come together to say this is our standard for writing, for going on international stages, for this or that. And in practice, people speak what is comfortable for them to speak. People speak, what they're speaking in certain spaces. Like I know some Igbo people who when they go to Imo State, they speak in a certain way. Maybe they'll jump in with the Owerri Igbo if they can keep up. But then when they're in Anambra State, they, switch to that. So people speak in different ways. So I feel like Central Igbo is great in giving us a base, because it would be too hard to try to say teaching somebody, here are all the negators.
Yeah,
kind of nice
exactly.
The base, and that these are some other things you might commonly hear, which is what we do in our teaching. We'll show this is Igbo Izugbe. We often mention Anambra Igbo because it is very mainstream. So we'll say, the GHI, but you'll also, for Anambra Igbo, it's the raw is the negator. Then we'll also mention, it could vary in your own place. Now that you have this base, go and ask your parents, your grandparents, whoever you can ask how it is in your place. You might find it's the same, you might find something different, but at least you have a base to start. And I think that's what Central Igbo allowed us to do. So I welcome it. I think it's definitely helpful. And I think it doesn't limit anyone to just speaking that, but it at least allows us to kind of operate on an international scale of this is our base, this is our standard, this is our,
That makes sense. That makes a lot of sense. And to your point, just as a reminder, neither of us are experts as far as Igbo history goes. We're having a simple discussion. Please don't come to her comments and start arguing with her. And don't do it on UIU's comments either. So kind of shifting towards Igbo podcasts and just the continuity, because as I mentioned, this is clearly a need, and the more the merrier. We need as many outlets as we can as experts or beginners alike to engage and keep our language alive and strong. And so outside of normal places where podcasts can be listened to, how else can people engage with Igbo podcasts? What other activities do you guys do, or services do you guys provide?
Definitely. So in terms of the podcast, it can be assessed on any streaming platforms. So Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, SoundCloud, Podbean, any of those things, anywhere people go to stream podcasts, and it's free and accessible. We also have our Igbo Conversation Exchange program, which is basically our tutoring program. It's a unique tutoring program in the sense of it's tutoring instruction, but it's also kind of this pen pal, kind of your go-to Igbo buddy, but also structured lessons. So it's very unique. We have it for people of all ranges at their Igbo level. So we have, from people who don't understand Bia, very basic, rudimentary. We even have people who are non-Igbos who join the group who just want to learn Igbo, to people who are quite advanced and actually could rap in Igbo to you. And you're just like, why are you here? But they just want somebody who they can consistently speak in Igbo because, they don't have that access anymore, or they want to start delving into Igbo literature, or, kind of be able to communicate in detail. Like if someone asks you about your views on something in the world, could your Igbo allow you to express that?
Yeah.
So it's a really unique program. And another thing that I love about it is that we're not selling any gimmicks. We're not saying that you will learn and achieve all your goals by 3 months. It depends on so many different factors on you getting to where you want to be, but we are realistic about it in terms of it's a process. Learning a language is not something that happens overnight. And if somebody who could communicate great in Igbo are still here learning, there's levels to what you might want to learn and where you might want to get. The program is also, it's subscription based. And so we keep it at a very affordable rate per month with different, like a premium and a standard program. And it's something that we have people who have done for, 4 or 5 months, people who've done it for a year plus, because for them, they're also just gisting with a Igbo pal. They're making sure that they're still learning and building their skills and kind of in a structured way, still engaging in Igbo. So that's one of our offerings. That's like our baby. And it's coming out. It's already been going on for over a year. I think we're almost at 2-year point since we've been doing it offline. It's online, but like not on the app.
Yeah.
But we're launching our app soon, which is the Obodo app. So that's our sister brand that will spearhead the app for that tutoring program, as well as other adventure endeavors. So we'll have our audio visual flashcards. So I know that's something that for me, I'm always just like, oh my gosh, I would love it if some of these things I'm learning, I could, flip a flashcard and kind of study it, hear what it sounds, practice that. So we'll be providing that via our, the app that's coming out. We also offer just a space on Clubhouse for learners and native speakers alike to engage in Igbo. So we've done reading Bible stories, we've done listening at Igbo lyrics and just breaking down those songs. We've done like games like Two Truths and a Lie in Igbo, and that's completely free. So we're very, very big on building community as well as, upholding the language and culture. And so we do that through the podcast. We do that through the tutoring program that's going to be in correlation with the app and other like the flashcards. And then we also do that through Clubhouse. We're just working on a bunch of other different things that I'm really excited to share.
That is awesome. And honestly, like as you gave me various aspects of Igbo Podcast that made it abundantly clear, like why you guys are growing at such a rate. But I guess my question is, because can one expect to have conversation or hear conversations, I should say, where it's more so like this, where it's English based and you're teaching and educating? Is it more so Igbo based where you need to have a little bit of knowledge of the language to follow along? Is it a good mix? And what's really setting out Igbo Podcast amongst the others? Like I said, we need them all. Whether you're coming for UIU members, we offer the free monthly Igbo classes. Whether you're using Google Translate, whether you have an app, we need all of them. But what sets Igbo Podcast apart? Because it looks like you guys have a very unique strategy with how you're approaching breaking down the Igbo language, but I just want to hear it from you.
In terms of what sets us apart, I mean, I don't know. I don't know. I think in terms of our Igbo language, I think a big thing that sets us apart is the fact that it's spearheaded by myself and some other really amazing people, but it's spearheaded by Igbo learners, but also in collaboration with native speakers. And I think what's really unique about that is that like our tutors learn and are trained on how to answer questions and think about questions from a learner's perspective.
Yeah.
And I think sometimes that disconnect happens. So like a learner will be asking a question, and for them it makes like perfect sense, but then the native speaker isn't getting what they're asking because they never had to think about the language that deeply, or for them, there's no way you can tell me that Enyi and Enyi are the same thing. When I'm like, bruh, I can't hear it different. I can't hear it. So I think what's unique about our program is because it's from the lens of a learners in collaboration with native speakers, we're able to try and meet people at their point of need. And I think that gets them, moving to different levels, because they have people who are really make an effort to meet them where they're at, to understand what they're asking, why they're asking, to understand why they're having so much difficulty with one particular thing, and how can we get it to be, stick. Learning a language, you have to make effort. It's not not one program is just gonna get you to learn it if you don't make efforts yourself. But I think we try and put out a number of resources that make just interacting with Igbo language on a regular basis accessible to all. And that kind of helps because you need immersion with any language. You need to be able to hear it, see it, have the words come out of your mouth pretty frequently for it to really, sink in. So I would say those are some of the unique things about our program, like our commitment to really meeting people where they're at, our commitment to putting out a number of resources, free and paid, to help create an immersive experience. Even our tutoring program, it's not just tutoring. We have a very unique, what we call immersive plans, small tasks that you do throughout the week to engage with the Igbo language. So it's very, very thought out, and about like how the learner can actually succeed, how the learner can actually make with, a schedule, with a huge, schedule, how they can actually engage in Igbo and have fun in the process, because learning any language is a process. It doesn't happen overnight. And if you're not enjoying it, if you're not having fun, if it feels like such a tedious task, it's going to be harder to keep up with it.
Yeah.
So these are all the types of considerations that we do and the things that we offer that I think help us stand out.
Absolutely. I mean, that makes perfect sense. And I feel like just speaking with you, listening to the podcast episodes, I feel more empowered to take my skill sets to even the next level. Yeah. But for others, like for instance, like UIU, I mentioned a big thing for UIU is to ensure that we gatekeep our culture so that we can pass it on for generations to come. And there's an overlap in our audiences, right? So everyone in the Igbo, we're your audience, right? So what advice can you have for the listeners and the viewers for this episode who may feel like, I may not have the time, or I may not feel like there's anyone to really practice with, or I don't know what is even the best course of action, or what do I do when the hype of UIU has died down, and how do I keep that momentum and that energy going? What advice do you have for our community?
I would just say to plug in, take a step, like going to the convention. That's a step to be around different Igbo people, be around the culture. It's just important. I feel like sometimes we get so bogged down looking at the full picture that we don't take any steps. So just take a step, whether it's going to a convention, whether it's playing an episode, whether it's reaching out to any tutor. Obviously, I stand by our program, and you can definitely reach out and we'll get you connected and start you on lessons. But any tutor that you feel like can be helpful, take a step, get started, even if, and not every program might be the best fit for you. So be okay with, redirecting, learning about how you learn. So I would just really say, take that step, and also take a step of engaging a bit more in some of the resources that you have, like your family. I think it's really hard to kind of just use your family. I feel like I've seen more success in when you have a tutor, you have a program behind you, it gives you guidance in how to better use your family to help, how to like, okay, I learned this phrase, or I learned this, let me go to my mom now and try my best to like speak it with her. Or let me go to my dad now and ask him, oh, how do we say it in our dialect? Like, it gives you a way to actually engage in a direct type of way. But honestly, with anything you do in life, you just have to take that step, like start something and then just keep taking that steps, and it's okay to like, this wasn't as effective for me, let me try something else. But you just kind of got to get started.
Awesome. And I would like to close out by saying, like, how can we stay in touch? How can your viewers and your listeners that are coming via the UIU lane that may not have heard of Igbo Podcast before today's episode, how can they stay in touch with you?
Yes, they can follow us on Instagram at Igbo Podcast, or they can go to our new sister brand page at obodofullcircle.com. Obodo is spelled OBODO, then FULL circle. You can also email us at igbopodcast@gmail.com. I think those are some of the best ways to reach out. Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you so much again, Ifunanya, for sharing your experience. It's one thing to see it on paper, but I felt like this was one collaboration for the magazine that needed to come to life. And I really appreciate your time. I think our viewers, we're going to share, this episode is launching at UIU during that weekend. And so please be on the lookout. I think this is something that a lot of people will really relate to. And I hope that we get positive reception for some of these comments. Again, we're not experts. We're just discussing. All of us are here to learn and grow together. And this conversation was super helpful in that.
Yes, thank you so much for your time. Thank you so much for reaching out. And thank you so much to Igbo Unites. I really love what you guys do and stand for. And I think it's so beautiful and so encouraging how impactful our Igbo culture has been to us, that we have all of these different platforms that exist and that are even coming out that just want to celebrate that. I think it speaks to our tenacity as a people. It speaks to our resilience as a people. I actually don't see many other, I'm sure they're out there. Obviously, I see what's in my, view, but I don't see many other communities that have these type of huge organizations like Igbo Unite. So I think it speaks to that Igbo spirit that we love and want to keep alive and keep growing. So I thank you all for what you do. I thank you for your time, and thank you for this opportunity to share a little bit about my story and the Igbo podcast brand.